we go back to school?
If the BC candidates are not able to write their exams on 15th of August, please what will you do about it?
Mathematics, English, and all other subjects on TV and all that. Who is monitoring the assessment?
Are they going to pay the allowances?
How can I connect to the internet during this doomsday era?
When exactly are you going back to school?
Tonight on Beyond the Lockdown, pupils and students are itching to go back to school. Questions about when we will go back to school flooded our social media handles. In fact, the impact of coronavirus on the education front has been immense. The academic calendar has been disrupted. Important examinations that would take students from one level to another have all been disrupted. I'm talking about the BEC and the WASI. With the inequalities already existing in our education system, the coronavirus has further widened the gap between the haves and the have-not. E-learning is great, but what about the poorest of the poor? How do they get access to data and sometimes even television to catch up on their studies? Coronavirus may be a leveler, but without resources, coping with the impact it presents could be devastating. Do we have e-learning plan for children with disabilities? One of the questions on my mind. We will be looking at these shortly. Later, as advertised, students at the tertiary level will get to ask their vice chancellors as well as pro-vice chancellors burning questions. Unfortunately, the University of Ghana pulled out of the discussion at the very last minute. But don't worry, we have two vice chancellors and a pro-vice chancellor capable and ready to take your questions. That's coming up on Beyond the Lockdown tonight. But let's look at Ghana's case count as it stands. Ghana now has 2,169 COVID-19 cases. According to the Ghana Health Services COVID-19 website, 229 persons have recovered, while 18 people have died so far. After that, we now look at the regional breakdown. Greater Accra leads in the regional distribution of COVID-19 cases with 1,852 cases, followed by the Ashanti region with 117. In the Eastern region, we have 87 cases. In the Central region, we have 21. That's the case for the Central region. In the Oti region, we have 19 cases. Upper East region has 19. The Volta region, of course, has 16 cases. Northern region with 13 and Upper West 10. Western region has 9. Northeast region has 2. With Western North region at the bottom there with 4 cases. Now, the 4 regions still spared of the spread of the pandemic are Savannah, Bono Ahafo, and Bono East. It is also worthy of note that there's been a significant increase in the number of cases since government decided to lift the 3-week lockdown. At the time the lockdown was lifted in April 19, for instance, Ghana had recorded 1,042 cases. That number has doubled at 2,169 cases as it stands now. Shortly, the Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, will be taking all your questions. This is Beyond the Lockdown with me, Emefa Apau, and we are live on radio on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, a dozen affiliates across the country, live on Facebook, we're on YouTube, DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144, and of course on my joyonline.com. Later on also you get to watch it on Joy Prime channel. Listeners of Joy FM will join us at the top of the hour 8. This is Beyond the Lockdown. Welcome back. It's still Beyond the Lockdown here on the JoyNews channel, like I said, on a number of platforms, affiliates across the country. Of course, we are live on Facebook, also on YouTube. It's a good time to start sharing for everyone to know about the impact of COVID-19 on our education front. And tonight, the Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, is my guest in the studio. Welcome, sir, and thank you very much for your time here on Beyond the Lockdown. I don't know where that came from, but how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
How was your week? I'm sure it's been education all along.
So far, so good.
You're ready to take our questions?
I'm ready to, in fact, hear from the experts. Because the people on the streets are the experts.
Are they?
Invariably, they know more than me. So I'm here to get their recommendations, and I'm so glad that the university professors are online through Zoom, and they're on the ground. So I'm here to hear from them. I'll take a lot of notes.
And I see your exercise book there.
The ones I can answer, definitely, I'll give my opinion. But I think the real experts are the people on the ground, the teachers and students and university professors who are going to be on Zoom. Those are the ones who probably will answer most of the questions.
Very well. So without saying much more, let's get straight into the questions for this week. We'll start with our first batch of questions.
Especially visually impaired students. Not all of us are privileged to have access to the internet or have access to laptops or computers. As I said, some use Braille. So just imagine how would those people do it, or how would some of our colleagues who use Braille get online and right? Even those of us who have access to laptops, how are we going to get online and do this? Because it will be the first time. It will be very challenging. Over there, we have centers that we go and take our exams, sort of do our exams there. It's a laboratory for us. So when you get computer, so when you go there, they just install and put all the questions onto the desktops for us to do it. Get it. But since we are home, it will be very, very challenging.
We are even scared because we have not done with our syllabus, and sometimes we have to struggle because we are going to write a BC with the cities. Those in the cities that have access to the internet, and because we in the village we don't have those access to the internet, so it makes our learning very difficult.
It is very, very difficult for us to learn. Sometimes, especially the calculating subject, they say the accounting, the costing, and the commat. You solve some question, you suffer, you try it continuous, you solve it and you are not getting the answers. Sometimes you have to get a teacher or someone who knows more than you to teach you. But look at our locality, if you look around, who are you going to consult? I've heard that they are learning going on online and television. And I don't have television at the same time, I don't have phone.
And Dr. Oditrim, so the first question there was from a visually impaired student, how they can partake in the e-learning project. So we've been to the rural communities as well and taking questions from them. So first off, do we have any plans for students with visually impairment?
Thank you so much, MFA. And I think if we don't situate everything that we're going to talk about this evening within the context of a pandemic, within the context that our life are on the line, within the context that we have a determined and fearless president who wants to make sure he saved the life of every Ghanaian. So if you evaluate everything that we're going to talk about here within the context of normal times, then you're going to be so hard on yourself and you're going to be so miserable. As Americans call it, probably you're going to have a pity party. Because you think everything is falling apart. But we have to begin to look at why we are even talking about a lockdown. And we're talking about beyond a lockdown. And one thing I want to remind your audience is that beyond the lockdown is not the same as beyond COVID-19. The lockdown was a period of time. The president addressed the nation, removed the lockdown, and said we are not out of the woods yet.
Of course.
We have to all work hard together. Once you begin to see that you are not in normal times, then you situate your challenges within the context. So, for example, when somebody asks me that I'm not understanding certain concepts very well, when I watch the TV, I'm not getting everything, or I don't have a TV, what I try to get them to understand is that we have to understand what is distance education or e-learning for that matter. Some people are learning at the high school level and junior high. People are learning through distance, through TV. Now, what is the object? As compared to what the universities are doing. The universities are fully supplanting traditional classroom instruction with online learning. Their goal is to, as much as possible, get their students something they could have gotten if they were in the classroom. The experience may never be the same. In as much as certain universities are being very innovative, some are using Google Classroom, Google Chat, Google Hangout, Google Meetup, the whole ecosystem, almost like creating a school environment for the students. Others may not be that ahead of the curve because actually this pandemic has gotten them to run instead of crawling and then walking. Once you situate the primary, elementary, or basic high school learning within the context of not replacing what you were supposed to learn in the classroom, but you are preventing learning loss. You see, when students go on vacation, most of the things that they were taught, they lose it. So by the time school opens, sometimes they've lost about 20%, 50%, 80%, depending upon where that student comes from. And do they come from a home where there are books, where they able maybe go to vacation classes, whatever it is. So GES is doing something unique here, rolling out content that had been developed from Sendlos onto TV, and with the support of organizations like yours. You also have online distance learning, Joy Learning, and other organizations. What you are doing is not to replace exactly what they were supposed to do. So, for example, if photosynthesis is taught on Joy Learning, for example, and the student take notes and learn, probably they will learn very well. But when they go back to school, the teachers are not going to say, because you watch photosynthesis on GTV or Joy Learning, we are not teaching it again.
Okay.
So the objects are different. And if you don't situate it within the objective of the learning program that you are doing, sometimes you may be too hard on yourself, and some parents are panicking that when their children go back to school, probably they will lose everything. That is not the case. The universities, yes. If you are not in class right now, logging into your courses, they are not going to replace it. So when we review this within a context, then we're able to know, yes, the questions that came up, some of the challenges that I'm hearing may be the same challenges some of the visually impaired students were going through while school was in session.
But what others are catching up, Dr. Educhum, the visually impaired person, he has concerns because he's in the university. How does he also get to catch up?
The universities, as I said, should be evaluated within a different context.
Okay.
The context is that they are replacing what they were supposed to teach in the classroom. Therefore, the universities have to do everything possible to make sure those students have access, because when school, whatever they are doing now, they are not going to repeat. So I understand him, and I empathize with him. And that is why I have a wonderful group of university administrators as part of this show.
Of course.
So when we get there, I'm sure they will. But I just really wanted to situate the discussion within the context of
you'll get pandemic. A number of questions that will give you an opportunity to do so.
Excellent.
But we've been to the rural areas. You have not given them a response as to bridging that gap that is already there, that has been widened by the pandemic.
Let me say, we have something called the digital divide. It has been with us. The only reason why we are talking about it right now is that the pandemic is now forcing us to look at other ways of teaching and learning. So the digital divide that has been with us, which we probably could have confronted it better at the household level, which has not been done at the household level, but has been done at community level, is now in the open. Because if you look at what the Ministry of Communication has done through NITA, they've built computer labs, they've given computers to schools, but how can you now go down and sit with people to use the computer? So now we've come to a point where we need to look at digital divide within the context of households, that a household have access to these devices. Now, to the extent that they don't, within this short...
Most households don't.
Yeah, within this short period of pandemic, the solution that has been provided, the intervention that has been provided, all of a sudden is not available to be used, because they are locked up in the classrooms, they are locked up in the community IT centers, and students cannot congregate there and use them. So yes, It's a real problem, and I can understand why anybody will get frustrated.
Now that you've set the tone for this, I'll beg you so that we get quick responses, so we can take as many questions as possible, because we need to introduce our Vice Chancellors also into the discussion, like you said, since you've been mentioning them. Our first, we've been joined on the phone via Zoom also by the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japong. We also have Professor Abednego Oko Amate. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies Accra, UPSA. Also, Professor Andy Ofori Brinkuran. He's the Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us via Zoom on Beyond the Lockdown. We'll get to ask the VCs shortly, then you'll come into the discussion. Thank you once again. I would want to hear your voices.
Thank you so much.
Very well. You're welcome once again. Dr. Educhum is on the hot seat now. Thank you very much and welcome. Dr. Educhum is begging you to come in and give him some support. We'll come to you shortly with Ask the VCs. But let's go on to the next batch of questions at this point.
Good evening, Auntie Emifa. I wanted to ask you a few questions about the coronavirus pandemic which hit Ghana. When will we go back to school? And when we go back to school, how are we going to apply the precautionary measures put in place by the doctors? For example, the social distancing. How is it going to be like? Will we go to school in batches? Thank you.
Please, I have a question. If the BC candidates are not able to write their exams on 15th of August, please what will we do about it?
Good evening, Honorable Minister of Education. So now that school is out, and if we go back to school, would we continue from where we left off from the previous term or start with the next term?
My name is Newton from Osetutu SHS, a teacher. My question is very simple. I want to find out. The ministry has designed a form of an online program for our students. I want to find out what form of assessment that we are using to assess our students. They have been learning mathematics, English, and all other subjects on TV and all that. Who is monitoring the assessment? Who is evaluating the assessment? What form of plan that we have put in place so that at the end of this pandemic, we'll be able to use that form of assessment to be able to plan what they have learned and where to start from?
My name is Prosper from St. Joseph College Education. And I want to ask the Deputy Minister of Education about our allowances. Are they going to pay the allowances whilst the e-learning is concerned? Because the bundle we are using, we can't afford it.
My name is Jaba Prosper from Cherikwan in the Nadoli Kelu district in the Upper West region. My question is, now that students are expected to use the mobile phones and the internet whilst they stay at home, I want to find out whether GES and the Ghana government have agreed on allowing the students to use mobile phones after the COVID-19 in their schools.
Professor Educhum, we'll go into the questions. When will we go back to school, and when we do, are we going to observe social distances? Will we go to school in batches?
The professors are on the other line. You call me professor. I'm not professor.
Well, Dr. Educhum, so how are we going to do it? When we go back, social distancing?
I heard so many questions, and especially the ones coming from the youth. I think most of them are youth, and we have a teacher. Very eloquent, thought-provoking, and the future of the country will be in good hands when you look at how these children were articulating their concerns. I think I will situate the questions within the context of what happens post-COVID-19. As the president said, he will give further directives as to where we are going to go. And in this era, every president, including ours, is leading with science and data. Looking at what is going on, the data in front of him, with the expert advice, then he's able to know this is when. So my nephews and nieces want to go back to school because we are bored at home. The last thing the president will do is to send you back to school if he has not determined that it's safe for you to be there. By the time when he's determined, he has made a determination that the schools can accommodate you, and we have what it takes to accommodate you and make sure you are safe, an announcement will be made. The president will give us the green light for you to go to school. All that I will say at this point is that wash your hands. If you go in out, if you have to go out, wear your mask like I'm doing here. Young men and women, and then do not be afraid that anything bad will happen to you. I know some of you are going through psychological turmoil. Many times as African parents, we don't engage you in conversation as to how are you feeling, what is going on in your mind, what are your fears. And I want to quickly use this medium to assure you that you are safe. Your parents are doing everything to protect you. The president of the land is taking decisions that will protect you. So at the right time, you hear from us. We all will be happy to see you in school. I miss visiting schools. So don't worry, the right time will come and you go. And when you are going, I think life after COVID-19 is going to be very different. Everywhere we find ourselves, things have changed. I can't imagine any school, anybody walking into a school without Veronica bucket or some kind of washing system just as a matter of precaution. I think life in the world and in this country is going to be different in terms of hygiene and what everybody ought to do. So young men and women, I just want to assure you that Ghana Education Service will put the right mechanisms in place post COVID-19 so that you'll be safe when you get to your schools. So I think there were questions about BEC
in August and what happens if
that
does not come on.
What I would like for them to understand is this. And I want to quickly give them a quick background as to what is going on around the world. In some countries, the exams were cancelled. Like UK, they cancelled the O-level and A-level right at the beginning because they didn't want the kids to go through anxiety. Here, West African Examination Council suspended the exams. So Ghana being a member, we also have to calm down and wait for them. I think the West African Examination Council, as well as our Ghana, everybody is monitoring the science and the data to see when will be the right time to take your exams, young men and women. I think what you need to do, though, is that now that you have some more time to yourself, for example, those who are doing the WhatsApp, by this time you have started writing. Now you have more time. Take advantage of it. Do as much as you can. If the government make the determination that you're going to write your exam at this date, you are ready. You go and write. So that is what I can say about that.
And the question about continuing from where we left off, you talked about it. So we'll go on to the online program assessment. Who is monitoring and how are you assessing?
Yes, that is the reason why I wanted to situate this context of the discussion early on, that the objective determines the assessment. If the objective is to prevent learning loss, you don't have a rigid assessment program. So for example, after you watch the TV, you take your notes, you are trying to make sure that you don't forget what you were taught in school. You are not going to take any exams on them via TV. That is not the objective of that type of distant or online learning. When they go onto the iCampus for high school students, they do more activities there. Now, if you log in with your BEC index number, you'll be able to get access to the iCampus. Now, when you go there, you do practice so that you don't forget the kind of things you learn in school. Nobody is doing a rigid assessment, but it's an evolution that what GES is doing will come to a point where schools can incorporate that into their learning process in such a way that students can go to that site and through the iBox, which has been distributed to schools, you can do more activities and your teacher will be able to see your performance and use that as part of your assessment. That is not what is being done now. Now we are focusing on, can we prevent learning loss? That is evolving to that point.
Now, allowances, the teacher training, and they're asking if the allowances will be paid them during the period because they are having to spend much more.
I don't have that information. I know issues of allowance always come about.
Okay, so Prosper, Dr. Duchum doesn't have a response for you just yet, but the issue, we got a question from Nadoli on mobile phones and whether GES will now allow its use after COVID.
GES is working, reviewing their program as their procedures and protocols regarding bring your own device. Which will include smartphone, laptop, and other things. So they are working on it. I think we have to face the reality that the world has shifted, and certain tools have become part of learning. So GS is fully aware of that, and they are looking at their policies.
So you may not be punished if you take mobile phones to school, but you have to be wise about it, of course.
The policy that will come. They maybe encourage you to do certain things, so we just have to wait. and see what will happen post-COVID-19.
Okay, we go back to the number of questions that we have. This time we'll take questions that we've received via WhatsApp. We'll go through them quickly, then we can get responses, and then we'll get into a next part, which is Ask Your VC. So our first question from Odishia Bananastapon says, assuming Ghana, we as Ghana are to practice 6 feet sitting intervals in classrooms, are we ready as a country, and can we have enough classrooms for such measures? And this one still on Facebook, the e-learning is more headache to parents. I always have to keep awake every evening and night with the kids to listen to their lectures and do the assignment. Where they do not understand the lecture posted, I have to learn on my own and teach them to do the work. Submission of work is usually 24 hours, of which I am away at work most times. So evening is our best bet. We'll stay on WhatsApp to get more of your questions. This one says, please, I want to ask the Ministry of Education that isn't it possible for students to go back to school whilst wearing nose masks and maintaining all relevant safety protocols? It didn't come with a name. For WhatsApp, that's it for this batch for WhatsApp. We'll go on to Facebook now. We have some more questions from there. Odisheba repeats that question on Facebook. So we move on to the next one. Okay, we'll get responses to the first batch of WhatsApp questions that we received. Okay. Isn't it possible for us to go
somebody saying, can we go to school now?
And maintain
KG children, telling them to maintain social distancing, put an arm around his friend and think that is how you show love and affection to your friend you haven't seen for a long time. You see, what I will say is this. The president has made this so simple and clear. Let's fight COVID-19. And we can win this battle. We can win this war. What we are doing now, modeling the use of face mask. Imagine if everyone on the street is wearing face mask. What will happen to COVID-19? We will decimate it in no time.
Of course.
I think that is what we need to focus on now and get rid of this virus, because we can do it. Let's support the president. Once that is away, we don't worry about this social distancing in school and what we need to do and can we do this and can we do that. When we talk about the 6 feet, I think the CDC, the US, United States Center for Disease Control, that came out with that advice to school districts that they should consider as part of their efforts thinking through coming back to school, that you have to have a student 6 feet away. It will be a challenge.
Okay.
No doubt.
We don't have enough classrooms to do that.
I think, I mean, you have to really think through this. But I think what we can do right now is to make sure we can do the social distancing now and do all the right things to get rid of the virus. And if we can stop it now, then most of the things that we are talking about and afraid of in the classroom, out of the classroom, become unnecessary. But if we don't follow the lead or the example and also the directives of the Ministry of Health, the President, if you don't have something to do, stay at home. Let's fight this war together so that our children are not going to be so anxious about what happens.
But of course, Dr. Educhim, the concern is that this is an eye-opener for us, and not that when the pandemic is over, we go back and overcrowd our classrooms. And that's one of the concerns they're raising, that we should be putting in place measures so that post-COVID-19, we don't go back and see the same things in our classrooms.
Definitely. Post-COVID-19 life will be different. But I think I'm more interested in, can we fight this COVID now with the guidelines that we know works to make life even easier post-COVID-19?
Okay. Well, let's go back to the next batch of questions, this time video questions.
The green track. I've been hearing that we'll be going to school on September. I wanted to ask the information minister whether it's true or not. And we're about 40 in a classroom. And I wanted to ask whether we will be observing the social distancing, because the classroom is not that big. And I wanted to also ask whether we will be wearing face masks, and there will also be washing our hands and be provided with hand sanitizers.
My name is Mercy and I'm in SHS, a final year student. Please, within this week we had a new timetable circulating, and then according to the timetable we'll be starting our WASI in July. And so I think if there's a timetable going around, then there should be a particular day for us to go back to school. And so please, I want you to ask the minister that, with all things being equal, when exactly are you going back to school?
Dear Minister, my name is Adu Miriam. I attend Anglo Senior High School. Please, I want to find out if there's going to be a change in our academic calendar due to the disruption by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
I'm called Katrin Tenfa from Nandom in the Upper West region, and I'm attending school in Big Balls, Bogatanga Senior High School in the Upper East region. I'm their final year, and I want to ask, so if you are not to write the WASI exams and you have to write entrance exams at the university level, what about we those that we are not going to the tertiary level after senior high and we have to go for work, like the armed force?
Great questions there. Dr. Educhum, so we've graduated to the SHS level. SHS, we have a green track student who is asking.
I think they were asking us about, are they going to school in September?
That's what they've been told.
Decisions have not been made. Okay. Whatever you see in social media, don't trust it.
Okay.
Social media. Anybody can circulate anything. At the appropriate time, when the decisions are made, it will be communicated to the whole country, so that you know what to do. Different places have dealt with this differently. Okay. Every country has its own unique circumstances. There are some places in the world where they just said, school has ended for the year. When we come back, we'll continue. In other places, they rolled school online and they continue. In other places, they are waiting for things to abate, things to change, and then they will continue from where they left off. So every place is considering different options around the world, and the president is being advised accordingly, and he will make the decision as to how he wants us to proceed. And as I said, the president is leading with science and data, so he is monitoring everything, and he will be able to tell the country at the appropriate time that this is what I'm directing should be done, and all of us will then spring into action and do the appropriate things to make sure our children have the education they need and they are learning in a very safe environment. I think the student talk about
a timetable that's going around.
Yeah, it's a social media thing.
It's also not true.
Okay. It's not true. Unless you hear from the Director General of Ghana Education Service that there's a timetable, do not believe it. All that I will say is that go ahead and study.
Okay.
As a soldier preparing for war, you don't know when the war will break. So go ahead and study, but don't worry about anything that you see on social media. It's wait for what Director General of Ghana Education will say after the president gives us the go-ahead in terms of our education calendar.
A change in academic calendar they talk about, and then also they've been told that there may be an entrance exams if they don't get to write WASI. How about those who don't intend to go to the tertiary level and want to divert into other areas?
I think those are all proposals and ideas that came from different, some have even suggested, as UK has done, why don't we use the continuous assessment? So there are different things that people have suggested. But I can tell you that the president have not given direction yet as to what the education ministry should do. When that happens, he makes policy at the highest level possible. And then when that happens, the whole country will know. So young men and women, don't be too anxious. Know that you are in a pandemic. Anxiety does not help you. Focus on things you need to do to protect yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't go to bed having nightmares. Nothing will happen to you. Your parents are supporting you. The president is leading the nation. You're going to be fine. Don't be too anxious. Wherever we left, we'll pick up from there. Your life is not going to be negatively impacted beyond COVID-19. So relax. It will be fine.
Okay. We'll take the next batch of questions. But at this point, I'd want to welcome our listeners on Joy 99.7 FM. They joined us at the top of the hour 8. We'll get into our video questions at this point.
My name is Derek Igeri, a final year student at the University of Ghana. Professor Ebenezer Owusu-Addo, Vice Chancellor of University of Ghana, rolled out e-learning, which have unequally benefited some students due to some factors which we all know. Now, my question is, if a student fails a course, will he or she be held accountable for something he or she didn't sign for? Moreover, if the person is also a final year student, would he be denied graduation as per the constitutions of the university?
My name is Iramadan Kwatiria, and I'm a fifth year medical student in the University of Ghana. Concerning the e-learning, clinical year medical students haven't benefited from it, and this is because of the nature of our teaching and learning. Unfortunately, we cannot do that online. So this will mean that when we go back to school, we'll have to go and continue from where we left off and then catch up. On the other hand, our mates in the universities are having the online studying, and I know that there are even plans to go ahead and conduct exams online. So this will mean that at the end of the day, level 400 will be able to finish and graduate. But then our people will still have to be in school to catch up with academic work. So my question is that what are going to be the implications on our academic calendar and also on the next cycle of admissions? Because when the level 400s leave, there will be space for the university to admit new students, but we will not have that space because our people will still be in school.
My name is Jim Albert, and I am at the University of Education, Winneba. Please, my question to our respectable VCs. I hope we are all aware of blackout in this country, experience of blackout, which is DUMSO. And so my question is, what are we going to do if my town or my area is experiencing DUMSO? How can I connect to the internet during this DUMSO era in this online kind of quizzes and...
And I'm from Mount Olivet School, Kumasi, the JHS 3 class. I wanted to ask if there's a possibility of us writing the BEC this year, and if there is there a chance that we will take the examination online?
My name is Park Resi Fosuation. I'm from St. Benedict Preschool. Please, I would like to know when we will start going to school and when GEO Learning will start teaching from KG to JHS.
Hello, my name is Abdul Sefuddin from the University of Ghana. Please, I want to make inquiries regarding to what the Minister of Education said about our examination. He said there will be no examination, but I want to know, in case if there is an examination, in what form will it be?
So at this point, this batch of questions had some questions also for Ask a VC session, where our vice chancellors and pro-vice chancellors will take that part, and then we'll take the other part that has issues about the BEC and whether it will be online. You've largely answered that, but have we considered taking it online as well?
No.
Okay.
BEC online is not something that I've heard anybody considering at this time. So they should relax. Guidelines will come as to when they can continue their work and what is going to happen generally to examinations. Information will come from the direction of the president, and everything will be communicated at the right time. But young men and women, wash your hands, wear your face mask, don't go out if you don't have to, so that we can get rid of COVID-19 for you to go to school. So if you are listening to me and you are a young person in school, help us.
Okay. And
help the president fight this war, and let's win it together.
Let's bring in the professors at this point. They've joined us via Zoom, and I have once again via Zoom Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japong. I also have Professor Abednego Okwamate, he's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, UPSC, and of course, Professor Andy Ofori Brikrang, he's the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. I have a question for you, Professor Brikrang, on quizzes amid blackout. You had students from the University of Education, Winneba. So we'll start with you quickly. I'm sure it pertains across all the universities, but we'll start with you, Professor Brikrang.
Okay, thank you very much, Mifa, and good evening to the listeners and the viewers, as well as our dear student at the University of Education, Winneba. Yes, we have factored all these things into our rollout. The first thing is that let me indicate that in the process of rolling out the online activities, a lot of thinking, a lot of meetings have gone into what we're doing. The first thing is that we are using 5 principles. We are building consensus. We are encouraging lecturers and students to embrace the new era with some form of positive mindset. We are putting a human face on whatever we are doing here to make sure that the teaching and learning become pleasurable. We are also using innovative approaches to make teaching and learning exercise experience something that everybody will love. And finally, we are putting Ghana first. Now, we have rolled out quizzes as a way of exploring how the online assessment that we're going to do, especially for mid-semester and end of semester, will go. But this is the critical issue. Now, anywhere we have teaching and learning, we don't have teaching and learning and assessment. We have teaching and learning because assessment is part of teaching and learning. Therefore, any mode that you use in teaching, you have to use the same mode to assess. If you are teaching and learning using the regular form, our assessment will take the same form. We'll go to the classroom and do the assessment. But if you are teaching and learning through the online mode, then the first thing that you have to understand when it comes to assessment is that you have to assess the student through the same mode. You cannot teach through one mode and go somewhere and conduct another form of assessment. That is not the normal thing that we do. Now, so we have made provision for anybody who for any reason will be left out because of some justifiable reason, including power outage. Now, so, and let me especially concentrate because quizzes, the quizzes that we are rolled out are not one-time quizzes. Some lecturers might have done 2 or 3 quizzes. You need maybe 2 quizzes as part of your CA. Now, we have rolled out a quiz because we said that when we do that, then we will ensure that at least one quiz will have satisfied the request for some kind of continuous assessment, especially if the lecturer did not conduct that continuous assessment before the shutdown. If for any reason there's a blackout, we'll give that student the opportunity to do the quiz again.
Okay.
If for any reason there's a blackout or any reason why a student cannot write the mid-semester or the end of semester, we have supplementary exam for that person. If the student for any reason is unable to write the supplementary exam, we have another one that will roll out as soon as we come back to campus, except that student will have to do that exam or that quiz online. So we have made sure that we put a human face to what we are doing and no single person will be left out. So if you're unable to do the quiz, there's a way that you can let your lecturer. Our LMS system has a messaging tool that you can use to send your lecturer and indicate what happened. We'll always give you the opportunity to rewrite the quiz or rewrite the exam again.
Okay. Well, I'll come to you, Professor Japong, because I'm sure this also relates. It's a question that we got from the University of Ghana, and she's a medical student. And since you deal in health and allied sciences, they're asking that the clinicals, the issues about practicals, how do they catch up? And also asking about the implications on the next academic calendar, for instance.
Thank you very much, Emefa, and good evening to your listeners. As you know, we have different universities and our approaches are slightly different. So we at the University of Health and Allied Sciences have decided that we are not going to be doing any online assessment.
Okay.
So we are going to go through the process of engaging our students with all the lecture notes, with the online learning and all the teaching material. But we think that it is very, very important because of the way our programs are structured, that we have assessment in the ways that we've been doing it. I mean, can you imagine a medical student who is being assessed for his or her knowledge in obstetrics? We do normal assessment of knowledge in terms of writing of some multiple choice questions. We do some essay type questions. But the most critical thing is what the student is able to do when he is presented with a patient. And that we cannot assess online.
Of course.
So in as much as we would have loved to go on the route that our other colleagues are doing, we think that we have to hasten slowly on that front. We have other issues in terms of practical assessment. We have other issues relating to our fieldwork. Our nursing students spend certain time in the field in doing their practicals, and our lecturers have to go to the field to go and assess their work and all that. We are a little uncomfortable about doing online assessment, especially for the programs that we do run. However, we are also providing the lecture notes and the systems that all our colleagues are doing. But for the assessment, we want to hasten slowly.
Okay, I'm sure at this point a lot of students will wish they were at the University of Health and Allied Sciences. But let's go to UPSA at this point. Professor Amate is with us as well. There's been a question that is coming about graduation. I'll take it and give it to all the professors as well. But let me first find out what systems that you have adopted at the UPSA.
Okay. So at UPSA, well, as Japo mentioned, each university is different, and therefore their approaches are also different. At UPSA, first thing we did was to upload the lecture notes. They have what lecture materials. Initially, we started doing live Zoom teaching, but of course, the issue about data and network issues came in. So we then changed course, and what we have done now is to pre-record all the lecture notes and all the lectures, and then we posted them on our online platforms. That means that a student can always have the lecture notes and also have the pre-recorded lectures as well. There are assignments also that we take. And so we're officially we ended our lectures this week. And we have come out with a timetable, and exams supposed to start on the 18th of May this month, all things being equal. So basically that's the UPSA approach. We are not losing much, of course, save the issue about data and network issues, which we have tried to resolve. And therefore, we are looking at writing our exams from the 18th of May, this month. And that should take us about 6 weeks. Then we go on our normal long back, and the normal long back. And therefore, we then wait till the semester resumes in 2021, and then we start again. So that's where we are now at UPSA. Okay, so
I'll hold on with a question about pending graduations and then take more questions coming in. You've not been left off the hook here, Dr. Educhum, because there are more questions for you. But at this point, we've zoomed in to ask your VC. So let's take the next batch of questions from Facebook at the tertiary level. So this one from Ening Ogo Oscar says, good evening. My name is Oscar Ening Ogo, a student of the University of Education, Winneba. Why can't the university students be in school as all safety protocols be put in place, compulsory wearing of nose masks amongst others? That's from Ening Ogo Oscar. Very long question there, cut short. We'll go on to the next question. This one from Yusuf Mohammed Dut. He says, please ask the Pro VC for Winneba what the graduate students who are supposed to graduate in the month of April 2020 are in need of their certificates and transcripts, and the university management can let us also graduate online. Sincerely, we are desperately in need of our certificate. Thank you. Interesting question there from Yusuf for the VC of the University of Education, Winneba. Now, please, okay, that's another question from Yusuf Dut. It's a repetition of your question. So we'll come to you, Professor Brikuran. All these questions are for, okay, so Bing Frank says, the graduates preparing for graduation this year, will they be giving their certificates? So that's it. Professor Brikuran, it looks like I was a prophet there. I was holding on with the issues about graduation, but it's coming up at this point. They're asking about their transcript. They are in dire need of their certificates. Will they be allowed to graduate online since you are assessing them online? Professor Brikuran, this is for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emifa. The point about graduation, we have two. Now, let's view graduation from two perspectives. The first is, if you have satisfied all the requirements for graduation, you can pick your certificate and your transcript anytime when the deadline for graduation has passed. In other words, now the ceremony, graduation ceremony, is just a ceremony that allows students to walk and be dressed in that regalia and academic gown. And so if the student is saying that by the end of April, He, especially a graduate student, had defended his or her thesis or submitted his project and has satisfied all the requirements for graduation and certification, the university will go ahead and release that certificate to that person, make all the necessary arrangements for the person to collect his or certificate. You don't need to have that ceremony before you can graduate.
Okay.
Now, once you have made you have satisfied all the requirements, you can graduate. That's the first thing. Now, nevertheless, if you want to have a ceremony, anytime the environment allows us to do that, we'll do that. But if you have satisfied the requirements, you can graduate, you can collect your transcript, and you can collect your certificate.
Okay, so you see, this is something you shouldn't be too worried about at this point. So we'll take the next part of questions quickly. And the question about universities, at least you mentioned earlier that the KGs, we cannot allow them to go to school at this point because, and then observe social distancing. These ones, they are at the tertiary level. Can you allow them to go whilst they observe social distances and wear nose masks? It's the question they're asking.
I think all of us should focus our attention on winning this war against COVID-19. When we win the war, everything else follows. The data will be clear, the science will be clear, the president will direct, just like every country is looking at their situation, the president will give direction and we'll all be happy. But at this point, it's difficult for anybody to tell you that I'm going to allow students to go to school. Are you going to test all of them to make sure they don't have COVID-19 before they go? I think the most important thing is focusing on what we've been asked to do. Wear your face masks, wash your hands, then go out if you don't have to go out. Let's win this war. And everything else will then follow. So yes, everybody is anxious, but let's be anxious about winning the war first. And everything else, definitely, I will follow. And we'll pick it up from wherever we left off. Okay, so on your screens right now, Dr. Edichu, I'm sure you can see that as well. Virtual learning, see how it's being done elsewhere. And the concern is right here in Ghana, I should say, right here in Ghana, see how the virtual learning is being done. And the concern is that if I go to school, we've been to Choco, for instance, and this one I'm sure is for the elites. And they'll tell you that this is the gap they're hoping that can be bridged. Do you ever think that children, underprivileged children, can get this opportunity anytime to come soon? It can happen. But as I said earlier, the attention and the focus has been fighting the digital divide. Digital divide, by the way, is a gap between those who have the technology and those who don't have it. And most of the time, it manifests itself through socioeconomic gap that exists in any nation. So the rich and the elite will have all the technological gadgets, and unfortunately, those who don't have the means will not have it. The government has done very well in terms of making sure we have technology centers. Through the Ministry of Communication, a lot has been done. But when this pandemic hit, it has now opened, personally, my mind to the fact that yes, even though the fight against the digital divide has been waged based on getting technology to community centers and to schools, now we're going to have to look at how do you get technology in the hands of people in their households. And I think if we learn anything, it's going to be about the next frontier of the war, of the fight to bridge the digital divide, now has to focus on how do households, through some innovative means, begin to look at the fact that if I buy TV, I should also have some access to some computer gadget. So I think the legacy of COVID-19 is going to be that eye-opening so that we all challenge ourselves that, as you said, the device that has been used there that has enabled some elite homes to have access to that instruction, that we can all live to see a day when children at Choco will also have similar opportunities. And I think that is what all of us should strive towards. Okay, so professors, I'm sure we'll go to the next batch of questions, but it's a question that I would want you to be pondering over. The issue about we are in an era where we are having virtual concerts, huge virtual concerts. Are we also considering having a virtual graduation, for instance? So please think about that. We'll come to that shortly, but let's take the next batch of questions.
Stefan, good evening to you. This is Divine, and evening to Honorable as well. I have 2 questions and 3 points that can be considered under advisory. The first is about the GLTV. The fact is it has less public awareness. Most parents and students aren't aware about a channel like that. let alone they follow the programs even when they have TV at home. So what is your ministry doing to increase more public awareness about the channel? 2. How soon is government rolling out radio school program so that students that don't have TV at home can have some form of education through radio?
I want to ask, what is government doing to help private school teachers? Just about 2 weeks before government started the lockdown, private school teachers have not been paid, and up till now they have been in their houses not working, and everything is getting tough. How is government helping to rescue them?
My name is Esther Lai from Nalilgu NMTC. My question is, school will open this semester barely month and we're asked to come home. So as final year students, is our school fees going to be converted into our registration fee?
My name is Prince Kwabena Asabel. I'm from Takrade Technical University, Hospitality Department to be precise. There are some few challenges I've listed down that I would like to bring on board for deliberations to be made on. Now these are the challenges. 1. Most of our colleagues are not using smartphones and they've equally paid the proposed fees for the academic year. Is it going to be fair enough for them to be overlooked because of their inability to purchase smartphones? 2. Most of us are in remote areas and getting access to active network for participation is a big challenge. 3. The various opted platforms for studies demands a lot of data and not all of us can afford. Is it not a cheat for students to go about spending additional money on airtime after paying those huge sums of fees? 4. Why should lecturers conduct quizzes online with time bound, knowing well that most or majority of the students do not have the various means to be a part of it?
Well, the next batch of questions. So issues about radio school program, people not having access. We talked about it, but when are we rolling out radio school program? By the way, Joy Learning is giving you all that you need, so look to it as well. But radio school program, is there a plan for that?
Yes, is working on that. I'm sure Director General will be getting us some information on that soon.
Okay.
In terms of public awareness, I think this is a forum to create public awareness. If you are watching this show, now you know that Ghana Learning TV is there.
Yeah.
And your children can have access to it. And as you said, Joy Learning is also there. Other networks have done the same in terms of providing support, complement what the government is doing. I think the other ones were for
private school teachers and payments. That issue has come up.
It always comes up. But private school, I understand the leadership of the private school, the associations are engaged in some discussion, and I'm not privy to where they are and what they've done so far.
Is your outfit not interested?
It didn't come to my outfit.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know that I think the association leadership have been on this show, or they've been other shows where they've talked about what they are doing. So what they have said they are doing is what we are all following in terms of the association steps that they have taken.
Okay, so there was a question about final year student fees because they had barely gone into school and then this pandemic hit. Will their fees be turned into their registration fee at the final level? She's a final year student.
Of course, the public senior high school, you don't have to pay fees. So it may be a private school situation. Okay. That is something that will happen at the school management level, and it can be dictated from the Ministry of Education. But obviously, that's a conversation the parents or students can have with the school management. But if you talk about it now, the school management also don't know what is going to happen. So we all have to wait a bit and see the direction that will come, and then you can then confront those issues, because then the school management will know that given the fact that this is what we have to do. For example, if they have to make up the time, the period of instruction and the hours of instruction, then why are you going for your fee? Yeah, so I think it all depends.
Okay, so the final question, you answered to most of those questions earlier. We've had the professors also talking about it, those who do not have smartphones, and then those who are not able to take part in some of the quizzes, and there are avenues for you to be able to do so. So we'll get into the next batch of questions quickly, and I'm sure this one also has issues about tertiary education. This one, it says, what steps are being taken to ensure that marks allocated during lectures in the form of roll calls or participation will not go against students who do not have access to the internet or have bad internet services, because some lecturers award marks for them. That's a very long one there also, but largely issues about not participating in some lectures and how you'll be assessed. On to the next question on WhatsApp. So this one says, is there any arrangement to make provision for a timetable to help allocate time for our lectures and tutorials, because we often encounter clashing classes? And this is definitely questions for our vice chancellors and pro-vice chancellors of the various universities. So there have been issues about clashing of some lectures and what plans are in place. So Professor, I'm sure that it's Professor Brikuran and Professor Mate that are doing this online system. So I would go to you quickly, Professor Brikuran, then to UPSA quickly, then we'll take responses to those.
Just the question on clashing of timetable. Can you hear me? Okay. Because there are a series of questions that the students that have been asked, and I don't know whether I'm responding to only one or I'm responding to all of them.
You can take as many as you want to take, because there are some for UEW that came earlier as well.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to respond to, first, let me talk about data. Now, the students talk about data as a burden on students, and I'm speaking from the perspective of UW. Mm-hmm. I won't speak for other universities. Now, when we started the rollout, that issue of data was one of the major issues that students raised. And then quickly, the university management, and I know other BCG Ghana also took this up. Now, negotiated with MTN and Vodafone, and our learning management system was whitelisted. Now, when it is whitelisted, it means that any student or anybody who is in UW, whether you're a lecturer or a student, and hold a SIM card with MTN or Vodafone, you access our Moodle platform free of charge at no cost. So no matter where you are, whether you are in the remotest part of Ghana or you are in the inner city, once you have a SIM card of from MTN or Vodafone, then you will have free data, and all the students who are on our platform can access to that. They are enjoying that. So that's about data. There's no cost for data. If you are using WhatsApp and Schoology and Zoom and Google Classroom, you are not on the official UW platform, and therefore you pay. That's why we want everybody to come to the Moodle platform, so that way you don't pay. That's about data. The next issue is about tutorials and clashes of timetable. We don't have that here. When we wrote the online classes, we replicated the same regular classes. So it's just that they've gone online. So if you have a period in the morning and the afternoon, Monday through Friday, it's the same thing. So we have not had any issue of timetable clashing. If it's clashing, then it means that lecturers and students have negotiated out of the normal system, and which might not have come to attention. But I can assure you that everything is flowing smoothly. There has never been any clash of time courses on the timetable.
Okay.
The next issue has to do with remote areas. Now, let me take my time and explain it to listeners and viewers. Now, here in UW, we operate the in-out-out system. In-out-out-out system, which means that only the first year students are resident on campus. Second year, third year, final year, and all graduate students are living outside campus, which means that they're living in hostels within the Winneba community or a Dimahu community or Kumasi or Mampong community. Now, when the shutdown came, we were as an institution to shut down our school, and of course, students left. Some might have gone to the remote areas. Now, our issue has to do, our concern is with level 100 students who were resident on campus and therefore cannot come back easily. If if you're in a remote area and you are level 200, level 300, level 400, what prevents you from coming to a very place where you were resident? Now, it means that you had rented a room or hostel in town, you were in Winneba, you had access because network was good, you have access to all the network, you are paid for the entire year. Now, Winneba is not under lockdown. Ajmaku is not under lockdown. Kumasi is not under lockdown any longer. Mampo is not under lockdown.
So in fact, no town is under lockdown again.
What prevents you from coming back and accessing the internet? Now, for those who can't, we have made provision for them. We say there are supplementary exam for you, at least 2 times. The main exam, if you are unable to access, we will give you supplementary exam. If you are unable to access, then we'll wait till we come back to school, and you will go through the same process of taking the exam online as at the state when we're in the shutdown. Okay. So these are my responses to the issue that have been rectified.
Okay, so Professor Mate, issues about students with no smartphones, for instance, yet they have to be assessed at some point. Issues about network also came up. But we've talked about the system in place at UEW. We've heard students from UG also say that they've been given some SIM cards from the various networks, but that does not work. What's the system in place with UPSC? I'm sure you've had some concerns like that.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mefa. So, well, just to emphasize what Fabricant said, the same issue applies in terms of MTN and Vodafone is all rated. So once you are using our LMS, it means that then you are not paying anything. However, I think the issue is about if it's the Zoom and all the other materials. For that, you have to pay for it. And so the issue about the data and the network, and then whether it is live or not, in our case, not real time. That is why we have pre-recorded all the lectures, so that even if you don't have access to the platform real time, you always can go back when you have access to the network, and then you can listen to it. In fact, they have it on their WhatsApp platforms and all of that. It's a way to resolve the issue about I live in the village, I don't have access to the LMS network and all of that. So you can actually take it off our LMS and then listen to it at your own spare time. Then there is no issue about the collection of classes, because as was mentioned earlier, those who have real time, in actual fact, is a normal timetable. However, in case you miss it, you still have the pre-recorded version of the lectures that you can listen to it at any time. Then there was the issue about marks allocated due to attendance. Of course, as we mentioned, these are uncharted waters. So we are no longer awarding marks for attendance. What you have is assignments that are used as part of the interim assessment. Then there was the issue about the quizzes that are done online and their time. Of course, that does not apply in our case. Ours are assignments, and you can have it and do it at any time, and there's no time assigned to it. I think these are the issues that...
Well, Professor Japon, then I'll come to you at this point, because we had a question about defending your PhDs, for instance. There are those, a number of them have come on our phones also asking that if you want to defend your PhD, for instance, in the times that we're in, how do you go about it? Do we have a plan, for instance, for that?
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes, please, Professor Japon.
Oh, okay. I wanted to mention earlier that in as much as we have decided not to have online exams, it does not mean that we are not doing online teaching. So all the things that my other colleagues have mentioned do apply to us. And I also wanted to mention that through Vice Chancellor's Ghana, as Professor Brickrind said, we had negotiated with MTN and Vodafone. And we are still in talks with Glo and Airtel Tigo. And Mr. Chigabatia, who is the Director of ICT of the University of Ghana, who is coordinating these affairs for us, is the person who is doing the negotiations. So in as much as you log in through the whitelisted portals, then you do not have to pay. So you have to go through the university-approved portals to access these materials. Then you don't have to pay anything. But having said that, I mean, you can do all your best, but there might still be a few people who will not have access. Data that I have in front of me now suggests that at least 2% of our student population have not even accessed the system at all.
Okay.
Which is important. I mean, somebody may say, oh, 2% is too small. So, but they are very important. They also need to be catered for. And it's for some of these reasons that we think that we should work together at getting COVID-19 dealt with so that we can come back to school and get our things done properly. So when we get back to school, the plan is to have, I think it's a 2 or 3 week tutorial for all those who could not have access before we do our exams. So these are the things that we are putting in place. But talking about defending PhD and things like that, we do not have any PhD students yet who are ready to graduate. But we have PhD students who are working on their proposals and their data collection and all that, who have been sent home. And our schools have been organizing Zoom conferences like this to comment on their proposals and make suggestions to help them with their work. That is all I can say for now.
Okay, so Professor Japong, there's a question for you. I must say that we have a number of questions from your school, for instance, the SRC and the team have all sent questions. But let me take this quick one for you, Professor Japong, then you can quickly respond to that as well. Then we can activate the phone lines as well.
I'm Amedios from the College of Health Sciences, CND. My question is pertaining to the schools under the Ministry of Health, that is the health training institutions. How is our clinical and academic schedules going to be like after the outbreak of the novel coronavirus? Since we all know that these schools do not have these online portals where they are able to access lectures, submit assignments, and as well
that we've spoken about earlier. So we'll quickly move on to some other questions, and then we can activate the phone lines at this point, because we need to take questions from all platforms. We've done Twitter, we've done Facebook, we've done WhatsApp as well, and then video questions as well. So at this point, we'll take a number of video questions.
My name is Derek Igeri, a final year student at the University of Ghana. Professor Ebenezer Owusu-Addo, Vice Chancellor of University of Ghana, ruled out e-learning.
My question is, a lot of institutions are not going to allow their students to take part in the upcoming or the pending examination. This is because these students have not fully paid their fees, which means that they've not fully registered in their institute or their universities. And as a matter of fact, we are in desperate times, and we all know that most of our parents have even lost their jobs, and it would not be any fault of a student not to finish paying his or her fees. At this point, if a student is denied the access to write an exam, it means that student is not going to qualify for the next academic year or to qualify for the next stage. My question is, can't government come up with a policy that can scrap some of these things off?
I am Francis Minta, a PhD student from KNUST. I want to ask the Minister of Education and the Vice Chancellors that what is their take on the use of virtual platforms such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams for thesis defense for postgraduates during this COVID-19 season. Also, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought a lot of economic hardship on people. Therefore, I want to know from the Minister of Education and the Vice Chancellors that what are the alleviation schemes being put in place to help subsidize school fees for students in the next academic year.
My name is Samuel Anderson Tega, a final year student of the University of Cape Coast. Please, my concern this evening is that the National Service Secretariat has already issued final year students across the country with NSS PIN to go ahead and register for service placement this year, which is supposed to start September. So, if the impact of COVID-19 does not improve anytime soon, does it mean that we are going to start the service and then go back to campus to write our final exams? Or are we going to write our exams online before we start the service.
My question is simple. I'd like to know what provisions are being made for final year students. What alternative means are they using in terms of assessment, given that not all of us can be online to be assessed? Our careers and our degrees are on the line here. So are there any other alternative that the government or the public institutions are considering, given that not everybody can access consistently an online platform, even if they'll use virtual means of assessment?
Okay, so that final question has been taken also by our professor. So I'll go to you. We are asking our VCs on the line. So there was a question from the KNUST. Unfortunately, your Vice Chancellor is not here. We've made contact, but we are unsuccessful. Same for the UCC, but these are tertiary education students. So I'm sure any of you can help us with responses to that. Registration, we'll come to that. But issues about virtual platforms for those who can defend their PhDs. Professor Japong mentioned that. But what's the situation quickly at UEW and then UPSA quickly, then we can go on to the other questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, MFA, the issue about PhD defense has already been catered for.
Exactly.
Again, ever since we started the online classes, a lot of directives and policies have come out from Academic Board and Executive Committee of the Academic Board. And one issue that we talk about is the defense of PhD and MPhil thesis, and we have said that all those move online. In fact, let me indicate that defending PhD virtually or by virtual platform didn't start with COVID-19.
Okay.
Way back from 2012, UW has implemented that we have had a situation where students have defended their thesis by Skype and by other means, virtual means. And so we just emphasize that because of COVID-19, all thesis defense will go virtual, all assessment go virtual. So we have something in place for the PhD students as far as we are concerned.
Okay, so UEW caters for that. UPSA, I want to find out if the situation also pertains to you. NSS pins were given for service personnel to start in September, but with this in place now, would they go back to write their final exams while they start their, service, all things being equal in September?
Okay, as I mentioned, in the case of UPSA, we are starting the exams on the 18th of May.
Okay.
So all things being equal, we should vacate by July. So we shouldn't have that problem.
So Professor Japong, is that the same with you?
May I come in here?
Yes, please, you can, Professor.
Yes, I think all these arrangements are fine. And I always express a bit of caution in our approaches. I think that our focus as a country should be on making sure that we deal with COVID-19.
Okay.
Because you see, there are issues about getting final year students to graduate. If you get final year students to graduate, then what? What about the others? So we need to think in a holistic manner and even anticipate the possibility of academic calendar shifting. If things don't get on well, there is the possibility that our academic calendar may move to January, and we must be ready to accept that as a nation. So yes, all these things are good. It's good to think and plan about these, but nobody knows. It all depends on how we are able to manage the pandemic that we have on hand. Talking about fees, almost all the universities I know, including mine, have put in place arrangements. We know that it's not everybody who is able to pay their fees outright. And there are mechanisms for dealing with this. If for any reason you're not able to pay your fees, you write to the registrar and seek permission to be considered, and you come up with a payment plan. So the issue of fees is not new.
Okay.
But the universities need the fees to be able to run. So if the ministry, as someone is suggesting, were to issue a fiat that students shouldn't pay fees, then probably the universities will not be able to run. And these are the realities on the ground which we really have to consider. National service. Is national service really going to work? As soon as this program, this pandemic broke out, the first instruction we got was to get all national service personnel to go home.
But there have been a new
the national
directive
service
for them to
personnel
go
in
back.
our institutions have all gone home. And then we are thinking about a new crop of national service people.
But they are resuming tomorrow from the latest, directive that we got. They are supposed to be resuming tomorrow. So, but I don't know for the new ones who are supposed to be writing their exams in September. That's some clarity that we'll be getting also. But Osei-Tufo has joined me on the phone. Hello, Osei-Tufo. Good evening. I'm sorry. Did I lose Osei-Tufo? Okay, so Osei-Tufo, please, good evening and welcome. What's your question? I'm sorry, I lost Osei-Tufo. I kept you waiting for too long. I'm racing against time at this point, but is there a plan to make us all not pay fees at this point? But we'll come to it. But I think I have someone else on the phone.
The universities have been very innovative. I'm sitting here and I can't commend them more. They've been so innovative, including even fees, arrangement. We need to commend them. Yeah. It gives me hope that the university students and the future of this country is in good hands with these great leaders leading our schools. And of course yourself as well. But let's take Osei-Tufo is back on the phone. Osei-Tufo, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome, please, your question, quickly.
Hello?
You have to reduce the volume of your radio set, then you can hear me. We're out of time. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, I'm calling from Accra. My question is, with the distance students, and
I can hear you, dear.
With the distance students, we completed last year, and graduation was being meant for this year. But they are saying because of the COVID-19 issue, they have just postponed the graduation. And I want to know, we want to also further our education, since we don't have the certificate, what is the way out for us to also further to do our master's or PhD?
Okay, so that's Osei-Tufo's question. There's a question that Professor Japong touched on earlier. But issues about admissions also have come up. It's a question that we also received that is running through. Is there a plan for that as well? We know that when you get your certificate now, we wonder where you're going with it at this point. But is there a plan in place for admissions for the next academic year? Profs, any of you can take this quickly, then we can wrap up.
Oh, I think, yes, once things improve, we will definitely be admitting students. Already, there are people within the system who have put in applications because they have some results already. However, the bulk of our admissions would come from those who we were anticipating will write the senior high school exams, the WASSCE. So it is our expectation that things would improve, and then the WASSCE will be conducted, or some form of assessment will be conducted through the West African Exams Council, and then we would have a criteria for selecting our students.
Very kind to us. We have an extension up to 9:30, so we can take more of your questions. Loads and loads of them. We cannot exhaust all, but some of them have been answered also, but there are more questions that need attention. So I have another caller on the phone. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Beyond the Lockdown. Your question, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Stephen Collins from Epijasi.
Okay, welcome.
I just saw a post that National Service Personnel are supposed to resume work on Monday, and I'm asking that most of the National Service Personnel are working in educational institutions, and we are not allowed to go to school. So where are these persons going to work if being given this directive? I would like the Minister for the Deputy Minister to answer this.
Great question. Now, Kofi has also joined us. Hello, Kofi. Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Lockdown. Your question, please.
Yeah, I'm Kofi from Kaswa. I was going to ask two questions. First of all, some time ago, the government showed us structures of e-libraries around the country, rural parts of the country. So I was going to ask, is it not the time where we need these structures to operate, where students in rural environments can go to these e-library places and go and learn? Secondly, the Smith Hostel, after Union Hostel, they've increased their prices for next semester by 1,000 cedis. Meanwhile, when to do part of this, we didn't even stay for the whole semester, but they've increased for next year by 1,000 cedis.
Okay.
So these are my two questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Kofi, for your question as well. So I would first want to find out from you, Dr. Educhum. NSS, like I said, had announced that they have to resume work tomorrow, and most of them the education sector.
And the schools
what
have been
happens?
closed. Valid question. I think what we'll have to do is to seek clarification from the CEO of the National Service Scheme and get him to put something on your platform immediately so that other people can know, because it's a valid question that if I teach in elementary school, I'm a teacher assistant and the school has been closed down, obviously I can't go there because the school has been closed down. But so they need to, if they did not provide that clarification on their website, probably it's on their website, and we don't know.
No, we haven't seen anything like that.
So we have to check on that.
Okay, so there was a question also about e-libraries dotted across the country. E-libraries, I should say.
I think he's saying libraries, e-libraries in terms of computers are there. But that is why I was saying that the fight against the digital divide that was being fought through the building of libraries with computers now has become challenging because you can use those spaces. Libraries have been closed.
But are we considering mobile libraries, for instance, moving vans with books in there?
Under this circumstance, I mean, we have mobile libraries. The Library Authority and the leadership of Mr. Sian, they've done a fantastic job providing mobile libraries. But distancing, social distancing, these are critical times. But the good news is that the e-library had a foresight. If you go, the Library Authority, if you go to their website now, you can download apps from there onto your smartphone so that you can read books that are stocked in the library.
Okay.
So that's something that we can do in order to keep ourselves going. Those who have access to smartphones, you can get a book downloaded onto your system and read it.
We stay on the phone a while longer. We have Kenneth here in Accra. Hello, Kenneth. Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Lockdown. Your questions, sir.
Good evening. I'm a UC final year student on distance student. So my question has to do with the e-learning that you are discussing about. So I don't know what method our university has also put in place to help you the distance student to also partake in it. Because we have not heard any concrete information from the university as of now. Okay. So if the university can respond to that, we will be very glad on that. And then as for back to the national service too, we don't know whether our second semester we are yet to begin it, and then even the first semester we didn't finish right now before the restriction of university were asked to proceed on vacation. So we don't know whether we'll start the service before we come back to write the exam or the exam before we start the national service.
Okay. Well, that's a question that was also asked earlier. Thank you very much, Kenneth. But we'll go on to the Zoom now and ask our VCs these questions that are coming. So UCC is asking about, a student there is asking about distant learning. But since UEW is very close and have distance learning as well, we'll go to you, Professor Brikwang. You have a response for that. What system is in place for distant students, for instance?
Okay, thank you very much. Our distance students are well catered for.
Okay.
What we have is that the distance students run a different bit of calendar than the regular ones. And so even though COVID-19 has affected the regular, it hasn't so much affected the distance student. But what we have done, what we have put in place is that, in fact, let me even emphasize that we as an institution are learning a lot about online and distance teaching from our distance program. They have been doing that for so many years. So we have borrowed a lot of the ideas from what they do there. And what we have done is that we are also rolling out a new calendar that will take them up to somewhere in October. But to sum it up, let me say that they are well catered for. All of them have been enrolled onto our LMS model program, and we are on course when it comes to the distance education. And no student from the distance education will have any problem with UW. And I'm sure nobody's going to call and say that he or she has problem with that.
Okay, so I'll go on to Mauli on the phone, but there's a question that is also coming in about a law that that once academic calendar is interrupted for 21 days, it has to be rescheduled totally and can't be, continued without adjustment. How will this fit in with distance learning and compliance with the law? This is an issue that I would want professors to be pondering over, as well as you, Dr. Educhim, if you're aware of it. But Mauli is on the phone. Hello, Mauli. Thank you very much for your call. Your question, sir. Hello, Mauli. Hello. Mauli, if you can hear me, please tell us your question.
My question is, in case we don't write the WASI this year, are we going to write with our juniors next year? And how will the admissions look like for next year without level 100 students for 2020 and 2021 academic year.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have another caller on the phone. Hello, good evening. Augustine. Augustine, if you can hear me, it's your turn to ask your question, please. Okay, so it looks like Augustine is not paying attention to me, but please do well to make it snappy so we can take as many calls and then we can take responses for them as well. So we'll go to the issue about WASI and whether if we don't write this year, we'll write with their juniors and what will happen to admissions.
I think I've already said it, that let's win the fight against COVID-19 and a lot of other things can follow. So what ifs are all there. They are very good scenarios. It gets us thinking. At the appropriate time, directives will be given and everything will be taken care of. But let's focus on winning this fight.
Okay. So, Prof, earlier I mentioned the issue about a law that my attention has been drawn to. Specifically, I'm unable to quote that, but that's a texter sending in asking that once academic calendar is interrupted for 21 days, it has to be rescheduled totally and can't be continued without adjustment. Are you all aware of this, Professor Japong, Professor Brikrang, and then Professor Amate?
We are in unusual times. And if I may even broaden the issue, we've had instances of some of our students threatening to sue the universities because they claim they did not sign on for this. And we are shortchanging them. I'm aware that at least 2 groups of students have initiated some processes. Look, these are unusual times. And therefore, when we are in unusual times, there is the need for us to do the best that we can to curb the situation. We did not create COVID-19. We are doing our best to ensure that we manage under the circumstances. So some of the lessons we are learning is also to ensure that we incorporate all these things in our student handbooks and incorporate them in our legal documents, our statutes and all that as and when necessary, because we don't want to be fighting our students in court. The issue about whether there will be 2 batches of students writing the WASI and all that, maybe we've forgotten. But in this country, I think there was a point in time when we switched over from 3 years to 4 years senior high school. And there was a year that, as a result of that, there were no people entering the university with their senior high school results. And the following year, we had 2 groups of people competing for the same spaces. We pray that we do not get into that situation, but we should be ready for any scenario. But the most important thing for me is that we learn from our lessons and make sure that we cover our tracks, and we appeal to our students to work with us because we are in this together. I mean, taking us to court will not solve the problem. And we think that it is very, very important that we engage, and the students should engage us if they have challenges, and we will work with them to ensure that the system runs properly.
Settlement agreement live on TV. But Ronald I'll come to you shortly, Professor Brickran, because there's also a question for UPSA on fees arrangements. So I'll come to you, Professor Mate. But Ronald has joined us on the phone. Ronald, good evening. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Your question, please.
I am Ronald calling from Bali.
Welcome. Please go ahead with your question and make it quickly.
Please, I'm asking whether there is any station for basic school. Any station for basic school.
Any what?
Stations for basic school.
Okay, online station for basic schools. Okay, thank you very much, Ronald, for your question. Razak in Kumasi has also joined us. Hello, Razak.
Yeah, please, madam, my question is very simple. I'm calling from Kumasi.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know the arrangement made for University of School students, those who are doing sandwich program, master's program.
Mm-hmm.
No, when are we going back? The e-learning that they are talking about, I don't know any arrangements about the students who are going back for this particular June. We'll be going back June, this coming next month. So I would like to know the arrangement the minister is doing for us. When are we going back? Because we don't have our vice chancellor over there speaking for us. So I want him to say anything about students of University of Cape Coast.
Okay. Well,
who are doing a master's program.
Thank you very much, Razak. I must say that we reached out to your VC, but we were unable to get them participate in this. But this is a question I'm sure all the professors are members of Vice Chancellor's Ghana, so they may be able to tell us what the situation is at UCC. But I have another caller on the phone. Good evening. Obed, welcome. Hello, Obed.
Hello.
We are ready for your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, I would like to know the situation regarding international students in UHAS. Yes, please, the final year students in UHAS. We are supposed to present our project work, and then most of us, our works are experimental and clinical based. But here is the case, most universities have been asked to write long essays. I would like to know if our VC could kindly maybe let them give us templates on how to write these long essays, since we've not been able to conduct the experiments and also get data for those doing the clinical work.
Okay.
Then second, with regards to the course registration, most of our colleagues couldn't register due to financial constraints.
Okay.
So now that the VT says that to write to the register, because earlier on they tried and then their letters were rejected. Okay. Is there any directive from the VT which will permit them to write to the registrar so that they can be registered? If so, then a class that should be given to the students population so that this can be done. Thank you.
Okay, Obed, thank you very much from UHAS calling us from Ho. So I'll start with you, Dr. Educhum. There's a question quickly asking about online stations for basic education.
Yes, GTV partnership with GES focus on the levels that have content, and they roll that out. And I know they are working on the primary and junior high school content, so it should be coming on very soon for you.
Okay, so if you're not satisfied with that also, I must tell you that there's a Joy Learning platform also that will give you all that you need. JHS and then SHS as well gives you that platform. Joy Learning is on multi-TV, and you can get access to everything that you need. And we have a revision course as well, and of course there's some platform also where you get to phone in and speak to the teachers, the lecturers themselves who educate you, and if you missed anything along the line. But we'll go to the professors at this point. We have one from Razak. So I was asking earlier if you could help the VC of UCC, even though they are not here. Do we know what the system is for Sandwich Masters Program? Once again, Professor Brikran, you are close to Cape Coast. Do you have an answer for them? Hello, Prof.
Around the Sandwich Program. Now, this is what we have decided, that we know that the way we have progressed with our online learning management system has been so effective that we're able to replicate it for distance should the COVID-19 persist. Now, and so the only thing is that we are so sure about second year Sandwich students. We can't say the same thing for first year Sandwich students, because normally if you want to roll out Sandwich, there should be some kind of in-person interaction for fresh students who have come. But those who were there last year and who are about coming, it's like their second semester. So whatever we are doing for regular students second semester by way of online teaching and learning, we'll roll out the same approach and methodology for Sandwich students who will be coming in June and July.
Okay.
Now, after saying that, let me quickly respond to the 21-day something that the other colleague read, the student read.
Okay.
Now, my question is, I don't know the relevance of the 21-day closure, because universities have not closed or shut down for 21 days. Immediately after the closure on the 16th, 1 week later, in fact, in the case of UW, 1 week later, we continue the classes. Online classes are part of classes. You can't divorce online classes from mainstream classes and say 21 days. So where is the 21 days coming from when we are still having classes? That's my response to you.
Okay, so Professor Japong, there's one for you, and then also I'll come to you, Professor Amate. So the issue is about prospectus and clinical base for long essays. They're talking about it, and whether you have a template for them to start using to write it, and then also, those who missed their course registration for financial due to financial constraints. I'll come to you on that, but let me take this question, which also closely tied in on Facebook, and this one from Neil Bay says, I want to ask our VC, what will level 300 students have to do with their internship since it's part of our assessment? That's from Justina Adopa, UPSA student. So Professor Amate, please keep that in mind whilst Professor Japong answers that question from his school.
Well, thank you very much, Emitha. I think the issue of assessment is very, the thesis is very critical. We realized that many of the students were having challenges going out to go and collect their data from the field and do some of the clinical work and write the exam, write the thesis, the dissertation. So what we have decided as a university is to allow the students to do what we call a long essay. So the topic that you are working on, if you could do a critical literature review on it and look at the pros and cons of some of the things that you were hoping to find. Because normally when you go in to do research, you have a hypothesis. And so basically it's to do a critical literature review. However, we've asked our schools to provide further directives and guidance for the students. So within the week, all the schools, the deans will provide guidance on how to do this critical review.
Okay.
As far as the fees are concerned, I think the gentleman is unfortunately rehashing the issues. We have the system in place. And normally, we give a deadline. And mind you, school, we had just about 5 weeks left on school to vacate, to do our exams, So there is a certain timeline that you have to draw a line on who have registered and are considered to be students. If there are very special cases, as we've always done, we will reconsider and have a look at it.
Okay, of course. But this issue also on fees have also come up for UPSA, Professor Amate. But let me not waste Samuel's credit. Samuel, quickly, what's your question?
Please, from yours, and I want to know, yours has been used as a testing facility now. So after the disease, after the pandemic goes over, will we be allowed to enter school, or will we be allowed for some time before we come back?
Okay, Samuel, not too clear question there, but I think I can make some sense out of what you're saying, that when the pandemic is over, will we be allowed to go to school straight? Is that what you're saying?
It is being used as a testing facility.
Okay,
and,
okay.
We want to know whether our safety will be ensured.
Okay,
Since
okay.
the university is being used as a testing facility.
Very well, now I get it. Thank you very much. So let's go to UPSA, Professor Japong. You're popular this evening. Your students are asking you a lot of questions. We'll come back to you. But Professor Amate would have us 10 at this point. Fees arrangement. We know we have exams in May. Those who have not paid, what happens? We know Professor Japong says you can negotiate, but what's the situation at UPSA?
Okay, so as Prof. Japong mentioned, usually there are timelines for payment of fees. By 4th, 5th week, you should have paid your fees. Then after, you have penalties which will graduate to the end of the semester. We recognize that these are not normal times. So we actually stepped down the penalty and then we kept it at 100 Ghana cedis for all the times that we were in school. That was number one. Then secondly, now lectures have ended. So by this time, we expected every student to have registered. But even with that, we are still allowing students to register around this time, at least up to the end of the week, so that they can write the exams. Usually, we would have closed registration by this time, but because of the situation that we find ourselves in, we are still allowing students to register. So those who have not paid their fees and they've not registered, they still can go ahead to register. And more importantly, they still can go ahead and do the assignments when they've registered. It's not time bound. and we'll close registration after next week. Then they can go ahead and write the exam. So those who have not registered can still go ahead and write and register.
Okay.
After they fill their fees.
I'm sure your students will be happy. But there's a question also from a level 300 student on internship assessment. It also came up on Facebook, Professor Mate. That's for you.
So for UPSA, all level 300 students and then level 100 diploma during the long back, they do internship and it's part of assessment and for which they are graded. Now, I met the course reps and the SRC executives last Tuesday virtually, and I've assured them that they shouldn't worry. Let's finish with what we have in front of us at the moment, and which is to say the writing exams. They can be assured that they will not be short. We are not going to shortchange them. We have a lot of plans for them in terms of internship. So let's deal with the situation we have now, then we can take it out from there. So no worries.
Okay, no worries. Your Vice Chancellor tells you from UPSA. Professor Japong, there was a question from Samuel, the issue about UHAS being a testing center. What will happen when COVID-19 is over and they have to go back to school? Is their safety assured, is this question?
Oh, definitely. The testing that we're doing now is in support of the national fight against COVID-19, and we are taking care of the Volta and OT regions to ensure that there is prompt diagnosis and treatment. Indeed, as a result of our intervention, now samples that are taken within OT and the Volta region are looked at within 24 hours. So there is no backlog as far as the Volta and OT region is concerned. In terms of safety, I don't think they have anything to worry about because we have taken all the necessary precautions, and there is no risk of anybody getting infected whatsoever. As to whether we are going to be testing all our students, I don't think so, because the RNA extraction kits are pretty much expensive, and government procures it for us for the purpose of the management of the COVID-19. Okay. So if any student has any problem and goes to the hospital and is suspected and to be a COVID-19 case and the sample is taken, then definitely we would examine. But we will not be doing testing of almost 4,000 students for COVID-19, no.
Of course, your SRC president and his leadership will not be happy with me tonight because they've sent a number of questions for you, but most of them have been touched on as well. Let's go on the phone line and take another call. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the lockdown, Beyond the Lockdown. What's your question, please?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Your question, please.
Please, my name is Abubakar Saad, calling from Ghana Lebanon Islamic Secondary.
We are listening.
If I overheard the Honorable Minister, he said when it comes to the private schools, like school fees, the government doesn't have much to intervene over there. So I'm a final year student. I've paid my school fees for I think almost everything, even including my wife's registration. So does that mean that in case this pandemic persists, which we are not praying for, would the government just sit down and want the schools to exploit us when it comes to our school fees? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Abubakar. We have a final caller. Good evening. Okay, so we'll take a Facebook post at this point. This one from Konlang Yekinam. He says, I'm a student at the UEW. Some of our courses have not been uploaded, neither to talk to learning online courses like conflict in West Africa and energy resources and consumption at UEW. Very detailed there, Professor Brikorang, for you to know that indeed is not happening. I'll come to you, so please ponder over that. But Dr. Educhim, okay, so one final one. We'll take another one quickly. Okay, So this one, Elizabeth Mills, she says, these professors are playing games with our lives. I can't even log into the site. And the quiz will end at 11 p.m. today. He didn't say which university, Elizabeth. I would appreciate if you had added the university, but I'll ask all of them and find out what exactly is happening. So let's take quick answers. Clock is ticking.
There was a question about private schools
exactly.
and fees. I was emphatic that we live in an uncertain times. You cannot issue an edict now and say refund the fees. What about when they are going to school? What I said was that be patient if you paid your fees. When directives come and the schools are opening, then you've paid your fees. If it so happened that the school year was going to be truncated like has happened in other countries, then you have a point. But at this point, why would you put any pressure on the proprietor of a private school to refund your fees to you without waiting to see what happens? So I think that is why I said that if you've paid fees, wait and see what is going to happen.
But they have concerns about exploitation.
Exploitation,
for instance,
you paid your fees. No, you paid your fees. The school year, nobody knows where it is going to go. What is exploitation?
Okay.
The head of the school, the proprietor, is in limbo just like anybody else. And why do you go and put pressure on her to refund your school fees to you? Why don't you wait to see what happens? And then you have a point to say, I need my fees back. You wait till you get directives as to how the school academic year is going to be treated. Then raise your issues, not now.
Okay. Well, Professor Brikrang, so there was specific questions for you. And then also the second one, whether logging is difficult. I don't know if that cap fits you as well, or Professor Mate, or Professor Japong. So Professor Brikrang, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emefa, for that question. I don't know much about that course, but let me give you something. We have said that we have rolled onto the platform almost all our courses for the second semester. When we started the online program, online rollout on the 18th, we started on the 18th of March, there were 600 courses on the LMS Moodle system. As I speak, we have 2,167 courses that have been successfully rolled onto our LMS system. Now, we are not talking about 100%. We are talking about majority, about 99% of our courses, which is that some courses might be left out. And as the chairman of the Monitoring and Evaluation Committee, we are tracking. So this is one thing that I'll have to follow up and find out what the reason is. Probably the lecturer is not rolled on because we have about 8 lecturers whose courses have not been there, who have not registered. Out of 506, 497 lecturers are on the platform. So this might be one of the things on the margins, and we'll track it in. So let the gentleman keep hard, and we'll make sure that that course is also on board so that they can have the online teaching and learning experience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Brikrang. That will be your final word, but I'll come to Professor Mate quickly. I have just a few minutes to wrap up. Also, your students are watching massively. Quickly, 2 minutes, no, I will give you just a few seconds, then we can quickly wrap up with you, Prof.
Okay, just to say a big thank you to the Ministry of Education, the Minister, NCT, NAB, the support we've had from them, and especially to my faculty and the student body. They've been so good in terms of cooperating with us to do this. But let me say that, you see, we are in uncharted waters. The alternative of not doing this online thing means that we will do nothing.
Okay.
It's better for us to do something with all the challenges and then take that from there. Indeed, for some of our students have come to say, why don't we now incorporate online learning as part of our normal teaching learning when we resume? And we said something that we'll consider. But let's all understand that it's not perfect.
Okay.
There are challenges.
Okay.
But we'll do our best out of these things, and hopefully we'll come back good. We'll come out good.
And that's more than the seconds I gave you. Professor Japong, we'll wrap up with you on Ask the VC.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emefa. I think this has been a very good discussion. In addition to what Professor Mate talked about, the support from the ministry, I just want to remind our good friend, the Deputy Minister in the studio, that in addition to all the support that they have provided, they should do well to give us the things that we've requested. Because it is a major challenge. And you see, MFA, we are different institutions with different capabilities and different levels of resources. So it is very, very, very important that the Ministry of Education makes true on the promises that they've made. But I also wanted to make a small point that, when we talk about tertiary education, now we're focusing on the universities. Somebody asked a question from a nursing training college. The nursing training colleges, the colleges of education, and all those people, the technical universities, of course. I don't know what kind of capacity they have to be able to roll out these systems. And we need to bear all those things in mind as we make our decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor John Japong. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences. Professor Abednego Koamate is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, UPSA. And of course, Professor Andy Obri-Kurang, he's the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. Thank you very much. And it's the hashtag AskYourVC. Thank you so much for joining us. And in the studio, Dr. Yawedu Chum, we're out of time, but I'll give you the 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
To wrap up.
I just want to say that what the universities are doing is going to lay a proper foundation for us to really leapfrog in terms of online learning. But we are in a fight. The fight is not over. All of us, let's rally behind our great leader, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, follow his guiding principle of the preeminence of the human life and the reason why he will not spare any human life. He knows how to rebuild the economy. Let's come together. Do everything possible. Save yourself, save your family, save your community, save your nation.
We are waiting for you to come and teach on Joy Learning. I'm sure it's something you take up.
An outstanding invitation somewhere, so
we are waiting for you.
Come.
We are waiting to come, and that's it for Beyond the Lockdown. On behalf of the entire team, Elvis Kwashi, Jojo Kobina, Yao Forson, David Babu, and the entire team, thank you very much for being a part of Beyond the Lockdown. I am MFA Pao. Stay safe and let's fight COVID together. Have a good evening. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com.